Welcome back to Fix It Finance. Today's video is very important. I'm going to be discussing the dangers of co-signing, and how to protect yourself if you have already co-signed, or if you are thinking of co-signing. Last week, if you watched on the channel, I shared about how I bought my first car for 80% interest, and one of the main contributing factors to me buying a car at such a high interest rate was because I had co-signed for someone. If you want to watch that video, maybe check it out from last week. And just the dangers that came from co-signing in general. So today I'm going to be talking about why you do not want to co-sign, and even if you decide to co-sign, how to protect yourself. Okay, because it's very important, because there's some situations whereby you just have to co-sign, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure you protect yourself in the process. Okay, so here are some of the dangers. Number 3, a lot of people don't think about, so let's get right into it. The first one: you are responsible for the full amount. So if you co-sign for somebody and you do not pay, or the person does not pay rather, you are responsible for the full amount and the monthly payment. So make sure you consider that before you co-sign. Number 2, if the person misses payment or delays payment, it's going to affect your credit score. So if the person misses payment altogether, or if the payment is late, it is going to affect your credit score. Okay. Number 3, if you die, your estate is still responsible for that bill. Okay, if anything were to happen to you, your estate, meaning your wife, your children, your spouse, whoever was supposed to get whatever it is you left behind, is going to be responsible for paying that bill at the end of the day. Okay, your estate is going to still be responsible if it's not fully paid off. Number 4, it will be included in your debt calculation. So let's say you want to buy a house of your own or a car of your own, they are going to factor that in, the fact that you have co-signed for somebody else. Number 5, if there is no legally binding agreement, okay, like if there's nothing that's tying you to the person can choose, for example, to not refinance, even if they are in a better situation, to remove your name. Okay, so let's say you co-sign for someone today because they were struggling, things were hard. Now the person is okay, the person is well off, and they can decide, I'm not refinancing, because they don't want to put that debt in their own name. If you don't have a legally binding agreement, you're going to get yourself into trouble. Number 6, it can and will ruin the relationship. Okay, if you co-sign for a friend, a family member, I've even seen situations where a co-worker has asked people to co-sign, which I thought was hilarious. It can and will ruin the relationship. If you co-sign for a friend or family member, if things are not well documented or well put in place and boundaries are not followed, it will ruin the relationship. Number 7, there's no ownership. If you co-sign for a car for somebody, you don't own the car. The person owns the car, you own the liability. Okay, so make sure you remember that when you go to co-sign. If you co-sign for someone on a mortgage, they own the house. Their name is on the title, but your name is on the mortgage. Okay, meaning if they were to sell this house and choose not to pay the bill, you are the one that's liable. Okay, so make sure you consider that. So now, let's go into how do you protect yourself if you do decide to co-sign, because it's like I mentioned, there are situations whereby you might need to co-sign. The first thing you want to do, I will say, is to not co-sign in the first place. Okay, I know it seems counterintuitive, but as much as possible, as much as you can, do not co-sign. There are 2 main scriptures I want to highlight when it comes to co-signing. The first one is Proverbs 11:15. It says, "Whoever puts up security for a stranger will surely suffer." Okay, but whoever refuses to shake hands in pledge is safe. The second one is Proverbs 17:18. It says, "One who has no sense shakes hands in pledge and puts up security for a neighbor." So understand, the Bible talks about there's inherent risk in co-signing. So if you are in fact going to co-sign, you have to make sure you show up against those risks. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is, as much as possible, avoid co-signing. Number 2, if you must co-sign, make sure you can afford the item and make sure you can afford the payments. Okay, are you driving a Benz? How come you want to co-sign for your brother to drive a Benz? Do you have a house yet? How come you want to co-sign for your cousin to have a house? You understand? Just make sure you yourself can afford the item and the payments. Number 3, have a written agreement as to when this person is going to, 1, refinance, or 2, fully repay. Okay, so let's say this person is, you're co-signing for someone to buy a car. The car is for 5 years. The person just needs, a year to be able to rebuild their credit and whatnot. Have an agreement in place that after this 1 year, you're going to refinance to take my name off of the loan. Okay, and have it written. Make sure it is a legally binding document. Okay. Number 3, monitor the loan. Make sure the payments are being made on time. Make sure that the payments are not being late or missed. Again, this is what will affect your credit score. So you want to make sure you monitor the loan. Okay, it's going to show up on your credit, so you can do that without even dealing with the person you co-signed for. Number 5, as much as possible, consider alternatives. Alternatives like maybe give the person cash to be able to put more of a down payment so that they don't need a co-signer. That way, you help the person without putting your own property and estate in trouble. Maybe you ask them to consider buying stuff within their means. Clearly, you cannot afford this Benz, so maybe buy a Corolla instead. Okay, you can also help them to build their credit in different ways. Okay, so as much as possible, I really hope you've learned something from this video. Make sure you consider the dangers of co-signing, and of course, if you are going to co-sign, make sure you follow the steps on how to protect yourself. See you in the next video.